guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a western slash horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by S. Craig Gizala, and this film is called Bone Tomahawk. So the story of Bone Tomahawk, you've got this town that has been policed by the sheriff and his deputy. One evening a drifter comes into the town. He has buried something just outside the property, which is noticed by the deputy sheriff. So the deputy sheriff tells the sheriff about what's happened. So they both go to the saloon and they confront this drifter. The drifter panics, so the sheriff shoots him in the leg and puts him into jail. So the evidence that this guy is buried is incriminating, and it actually implicates him to some murders. So this guy is going to face the death penalty once he has been tended to. So the wife of this guy, played by Patrick Wilson, who is injured, he's got a very nasty injury on his leg. The wife is actually the town doctor, so she is called to the jail, and she basically tells the sheriff, look, his wounds are pretty bad, he's got a fever, and that this drifter is going to have to be tended to all night. So the sheriff says, okay, he's going to leave, he'll come back in the morning to see how he is. So that morning, the deputy sheriff basically tells the sheriff that something nasty has happened, that inside a stable, this stable hand who tends to the horses has been ripped apart. He's got his innards all over the place, so initially they think it's an animal, but in fact it's something far worse. So they go to the jail and they realise no one is there. The jail door is open and the actual drifter is gone as well. So they don't know where they've gone, but it actually turns out that there is an arrow that is on the wall. So he takes the arrow out, he looks at it, and this basically suggests that these people inside the jail have been kidnapped by savages. So they're going to band together and they're going to try and trek to the hideout where they believe they are. That is going to take 5 days, and they're going to try and rescue them. So whether or not they can, it's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Bone Tomahawk. I actually really like this film, and that was a welcome surprise, because with a lot of horror slash westerns I'm bitterly disappointed. Now I love both genres. Westerns are great and I love the horror obviously. So when you got the likes of Dead in Tombstone, you know, the Gallows Walkers with Wesley Snipes and the first one with Danny Trejo, when you've got those films you think that they're a missed opportunity because they're really not taking themselves very seriously. But, you know, case in point, Ravenous, that was a very entertaining film, but still I thought that was slightly a missed opportunity because it did have a very dark comedy aspect to it. So I thought that if a movie goes along and it takes itself very seriously, it does have potential to be a very entertaining experience. And that's exactly what Bone Tomahawk is. I think this is a lot better than Ravenous because it takes itself a lot more seriously. Now ultimately, this movie is a western. This is a movie about the classic western stories, about, you know, the gunslingers who are going to rescue someone from the villains. And it does keep it grounded in reality, which is why the horror aspect to this film works so well, is that it doesn't go down a cheap path. It doesn't go down a supernatural path. It doesn't go down zombies or vampires or, you know, otherworldly sort of happenings. It does stay grounded in reality. You know, these villains are in fact people, but there's a creative sort of spin on these Indians, on these savages, that make them almost otherworldly, but at the same time just grounded in realism. So the horror aspect of this film is through the brutality. The brutality is unrelenting. It is in your face and it doesn't make any apologies. So if you're not a fan of extreme cinema, then I would say stay away from Bone Tomahawk, because the violence isn't frequent, but when it happens it is really, really brutal. And that's where I think the movie works so well, is that, you know, the brutality of the violence is in fact horrifying. It's supposed to be horrifying. A lot of other horror films, they rely on supernatural aspects because they're not trying to horrify you through the violence. Either, you know, they don't have the budget to do it, or they're a little bit afraid to do it. So, you know, that is very relevant to society. You hear about ISIS, when they behead people, when they dismember people, when they burn people alive. You think to yourself, that is horrifying, but it doesn't hit you with the impact because you're not actually witnessing it happening. And a lot of films don't let you witness these types of things, but I thought Bone Tomahawk does. And it was a very smart way that it blended the horror with the western aspect, because it was very natural and the transition was very subtle. So you don't notice that you're slowly getting into a horror film. You always think that the whole mood of the film is very dreaded. So ultimately this is a western, but the horror elements towards the second half of the film work very well. And it doesn't actually feel like it's trying to be overly scary, it's just happening very, very naturally. So the movie is very long, which is something I really appreciate. I really like the slow impact the film has, because it allows you to absorb into their situation. It's got a 5-day trek to get to this hideout. And a lot of other films will cut out the sort of travelling aspect, and when they finally get to their destination, you don't feel the tiredness that they're feeling. But the movie goes for 133 minutes, and a lot of these 133 minutes is the travelling. And you actually feel like you're one of these people, because you actually feel the tiredness, you feel the filthiness, you feel they're fed up, you feel they're bored, but you feel like you've gone on that 5-day trek, so you can gain a connection with these people along the way. It feels like these people you've spent a lifetime with. So when they fight the villains, you hope they beat the villains, and you hope that they can save these people that you don't know if they're alive or not. And that's the beauty of the film, is that there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't get a point of view of these prisoners, so you're as oblivious to the situation as this sheriff and his helpers are. So while they're going on all this massive journey, you don't know if they're still alive. So it might be for nothing. So I like the fact that it was told through one aspect. It was told from one point of view, and you don't know what's going on. So it allows you to use your imagination. It also allows you to use your imagination as to what the sheriff and his helpers are up against. These savages, you know at the start, they are capable of brutal things, but you don't know what they look like. You hear about what they do. But that sense of, as I said, unknowing, sort of the imagination is running wild, and the slow build-up allows that imagination and the build-up and the sort of bracing yourself for the impact to grow. And it does grow to a very high level, and then all of a sudden it splashes out, and it actually feels like it's very rewarding. So I thought the build-up was very purposeful, and a lot of people might not like it for that, but I thought it helped contribute to the impact the film had. It is a classic Western tale. It is a movie about this guy who is horribly injured, the power of love. He wants to get his wife out of harm's way, and he's willing to go through the most unbearable pain. So it does have a heart to it, and it does understand what Western's all about, but thankfully it understands what horror is all about as well, and it's showing you the horror of humanity. It's not showing you the horror of a zombie or whatever. It actually feels like it's paying respect to the horror genre as well as the Western genre. So the acting was fantastic. Kurt Russell, who is one of the most underrated directors out there, plays the sheriff in a very charming way. He is very brutal in what he does, but you can tell that he's a very good man. He has, the people that he polices, you can feel that he has, their well-being is at the forefront. And you've got the sheriff's deputy, who is just as good. He's just as good a character. You really connect to that guy. You've got Matthew Fox, who plays this slightly insane guy, but you feel that he has the right intentions. And then you've got Patrick Wilson, who plays the injured husband, who you feel, he's the most sympathetic character, because you want him to get to his wife, because he's willing to limp on one leg in order to get there. You've got a cameo from Sid Haig at the start of the film, which is a welcome addition for horror fans. And you've also got David Arquette, who plays a small role as well. The cinematography is excellent. As I said, it does look like a genuine Western film, but then at this end it does actually feel like a very harrowing experience. It doesn't take itself out of the realms into the stereotypical horror world. It actually feels like it stays grounded in realism, but at the same time hitting you with shocking brutality that makes these villains even worse, because you feel that, yes, these people are savages. You're actually seeing this savage nature that they have, instead of just being told they're savages. So it's willing to go that extra step to hit you with very brutal violence, and that is why I think this is the best horror/Western film that I have seen. This is better than Ravenous because it takes itself more seriously, and in the end what you get is just a very, very rewarding film. So overall, for Bone Tomahawk, this was so much better than I thought it would be. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, watching movies, and I'll see you later.